and uh, it's really pleasure for me to have Dr. Sunil Dole today as a speaker. Before I give his officially his background, I probably know him for last nearly 5 years. Yeah, nearly 5 years, and so we are little bit we are got uh, connecting link little missed for some time, but we are back again, and because he was not available some other reason. So when we met, I thought of let's why not he can help us with understanding about membrane void. So that's what I requested, and he happily accepted that. And to begin with, and eventually I also persuaded if he can join us members group, and he voluntarily said yes, Chandu, I will definitely join Water Quality India Association. And he was WQA USA member. And then in the first meeting, if Dr. Neeraj, a couple of you are there, he was attended the first WQA meeting in Bangalore in 2015. So it's been pleasure that he is back with us. He already took the gold members. So welcome to the family, Sunil, Dr. Sunil. So let me begin with what his background, and very interestingly, and really it's exciting for me uh, that he comes from a very humble background from the Vidarbha tribal area of Vidarbha district, Maharashtra, and he really has worked on many areas. But let me have his credential, academic credential, education. He has done a bachelor's in engineering from Amravati University and done MTech and PhD from IIT Kanpur. And then he went all the way to Belgium in the non-Newtonian rheology group at UCL and did his postdoctoral fellowship. And then he come back to India in 2011 and joined as senior research scientist in Reliance Group. And after that, as an entrepreneur, I think most of the IIT guys and many I have seen that they go for entrepreneurships. And then he decided to get into the journey of entrepreneurship in 2011. And he started first company with his friends, Techno Orbital Advanced Material Private Limited. And this is the first company that he's a founder as well as a director, where probably we have I got introduced to him through one of my friend 5 years back. And then basically his expertise is on the new generation water filtration membranes, air purification membrane, and new generation wastewater treatment technologies. Most interesting part which I realize is that even the polymer that also invented by them, and then all the processes, everything to up to the final product also is done by the same company, his own company. So that's something very interesting for me to know about this. And he has a team of people who are highly technical background. And also he is involved with some companies which is now working on working with some engineering solution related. He's there also as a founder director, founder as well as director, and also recently, or rather, they're into the very advanced way to nanotechnology based N95 mask. Also, they are involved, and also I just heard from him is that they are also involved with some bulletproof jackets also. So he's there as a sometime as an advisor and sometimes also in this kind of a companies. And another very interesting part about him is that as a researcher, we all know that he has a number of publications and number of, I think what he has given me 5-page CV. So and he said that this is brief bio. He said, I don't know what is that is expanded bio. So I am just trying to take bits and pieces out of his brief bio and telling you. So he has number of publications, and he has 3 patents. He has presented in many conference presentations and all, and he has 15 awards. So I will just mention 2-3 awards, which is probably very renowned one. One is in 2018, he got technologically selected by United Nations HTI Forum, New York. And the second is our Water Award FICCI in 2017. He also have CII Green Technology Award, that is 2017. And also he is CSIR NCL Research Foundation Technology Award also in 2016. But the last thing which I just kept it the last thing, but not the least. You all will be thrilled to know that his efforts, sincere efforts, were recognized in the area of affordable safe water by none other than Honorable President Shri Ramnath Kovind. So really, Sunil, for your commendable work in this area to reach out to the masses of India to provide you safe, affordable, potable water. And he's working with many of the companies. And I know a couple of members of our association also. We really look forward your uh, help as well as see that on a country level how we can affordable drinking water available to the masses in this country. With this, I invite Dr. Sunil Dhol, founder and director of Techno Orbital Advanced Material Private Limited, to talk on membranes, membranes, materials, and its application. Welcome, Dr. Sunil Dhol. Thank you.
Thank you, Chandu. Thank you. So nice of you. I told you do not take more than a minute for my introduction, but you ended up eating around 3-4 more minutes of mine from the technical discussion. So thank you so much. Just a small correction. Not only I attended the first WQA USA meeting in India, but I was also the gold sponsor.
Sorry.
So I think I will share the screen and we'll start the discussion. Yeah, can you guys see?
Yes.
Yeah, is it a full screen, Chandu, or do I need to do something?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So let us hit the topic. So we'll be talking about, I'm basically by education, as Chandu said, I am a chemical engineer. But my academic research has nothing to do with the membranes. But then when I started this journey of entrepreneurship, then I started learning about the materials. Then as a group, we invented one polymer. The same polymer we converted into the membranes in collaboration with the CSIR, one of the CSIR labs in Pune, National Chemical Laboratory. So on this journey for last 8-9 years, then I started learning about the membranes. So I would like to share my experience and what all I came across. So basically the presentation layout is, we will start with the history of the membranes, that how old the membrane thing is. That are we talking about like 1,000 years, 500 years, 100 years, or we are very young? Okay. Then how broadly the membranes are classified. Then what are the different processes through which we make membrane, or the processes based on the membranes, different, whether it is water purification or any industrial applications. What are the different materials? The broadly some, basic membrane properties. Then the most important thing is what are the, what should be the selection criteria for membranes. Like there are so many membranes, available in the market, different make, different configurations. So is there any say thumb rule or any criteria through which we can actually select a membrane? And the last is coming soon, which you will anyway come to know soon, what is coming soon. So this is a very, I know some of you might be a very, very much expert in this field, but the first talk, I wanted to have a very basic discussion so that the following talks, then maybe part 2, 3, 4, whatever. So then we will go deep into the science or technology or the, or the future potentials and all that. So this is the history of membranes. So I'll not go into the very much detail of it, but it somehow it started around, maybe 70 years back. So that is how young we are talking about when we discuss about the membranes. So the interesting point in this, on this slide is that ultimately the commercial membranes like the RO membranes were developed by an Indian scientist, Dr. Sauri Rajan. So he developed in Canada, but was an Indian. And of course, we all know that RO changed the whole picture of the water purification. So now for a layman, basically what is a membrane? So it is a thin barrier which permits selected mass transport. Now, of course, the picture I have shown is the strainer for filtering the tea. So this is the simplest way it could be explained. So now there are, a couple of things here. It is not just that the separation is happening based on the physical sizes of the impurities, but it's a selective mass transport. Maybe the impurities are separated because of the mesh or particulate size, or the impurities may be separated because of the reaction of the impurities with the membrane media. So there is some maybe diffusion or some chemical reaction, some adsorption other than physical means. So that is a membrane. Now this is a very basic terminology. I think we all know this, but the takeaway from this slide, there is a very great or huge takeaway from this slide, though all of you might have seen this figure so many times. So when we talk about broadly, when we think of giving membranes name, then we talk about what is the size of impurities or what is the size of porosity that membrane is having. So on the x-axis, you have the size in microns, or I can also convert that into nanometers, which will be easy to understand. Suppose we are talking about the ionic range, or say, mono or bivalent ions like calcium, magnesium. So they are in the range of, less than 1 nanometer. So if something which we can separate, which is less than 1 nanometer, then we are talking about membranes like reverse osmosis or nanofiltration. And from 1 nanometers to 100 nanometers, the sizes fall into the range of ultrafiltration. Then from say 100 nanometers to 10,000 nanometers, we are into microfiltration. And above that, we are above that, of course, we are talking about a very coarse filtration. So what is the takeaway message from this slide? If you see at the bottom, there is a green line which is showing the operating pressure in the opposite direction. So smaller it is, but natural. I mean, there is no rocket science here. Smaller the pore size, you need to have a large pressure to push the water through it or operate the membrane. So this is one of the clues to what should we focus in future on, that can we come up with the membranes which can operate at very low pressure, but very at the same time with very small teeny tiny porosity. That is where the efforts are going to be now in the future. So maybe in the coming series or part 2 or part 3, we will be discussing about that also. So role of a membrane, I assume this all the audience in this forum right now, we are mostly looking for the water purification applications, but I am involved in multiple different companies wherein we are using membranes for different applications other than water purification. Like if you want to change the composition of the feed itself, if you're talking about the product recovery, like you can recover dyes, pigments, or you can do the alcohol dehydration. So for example, in normal distilleries, you end up getting 95% pure ethanol, but to have a pharma grade ethanol, you need to remove that 5% water, and there are no conventional ways of doing that. But there are membranes which recently people are coming up with, or they have come up with. There's so many groups working on the membranes are called membrane distillation membranes, or there are pervaporation membranes which are used for the alcohol dehydration. So that is one of the applications or role of the membrane. Then there are multiple actually roles, but the fourth important role I see as far as the future is concerned or potential is concerned is the transport of ions. So when most of you might know about the fuel cells. So in fuel cells, you need a membrane which can transport only protons. So we are talking about Nafion membranes there. So that is a very different role than water purification. So now coming to the next slide. So what is the broad classification of membranes? So when right now when you talk about the membranes in the market, or anywhere outside in India, the only thing people know is whether it is UF, MF, whatever. They say RO membrane, RO ka membrane hai, right? So, but we really need to understand the classification in order to select the suitable membrane for our application and for the sustainability of the product or project. So the basic classification starts with whether it is a biological membrane or synthetic membrane. So it is a very simple thing, like biological membranes. For example, kidney is a biological or natural membrane. Then synthetic membranes are all those membranes which are made out of a polymer or inorganic material like ceramic or zeolite, or either made out of a metal like very fine SS mesh, talking about like maybe 2-3 micron size mesh. So that's the very broad classification. Then next criteria of classifying membranes is the activity, whether it is a passive membrane or reactive membrane. So passive membranes is like it is doing the separation based on the physical sizes of the impurities. Reactive membrane is something which is like like which happens in the gas separation membrane. The membrane has some particular charge or some carrier, so it picks up the impurity from one end and carries it to the another end by reacting with it, and then it releases that impurity on the other side of the membrane. So that is even true with some of the pervaporation membranes also. Then we come to the next point, which is a structure. Now, of course, there are mostly I will be focusing on porous membranes in this talk. There are non-porous membranes also. So in porosity also, there are symmetric, whatever pores you have in the membrane. So those might be symmetric or those might be asymmetric, or it is a combination of both, which is a composite membrane. So for example, RO we can say is a composite membrane. Then material of construction, whether it is made out of polymer like PTFE, PVDF, polyether sulfone, or inorganic material like like zeolite or ceramic or metal. And then the last one is, of course, the physical form, whether it is a flat sheet, hollow fiber, or tubular membrane. So we will be seeing in the next few slides, we will be seeing, we'll be discussing in this in detail. Chandu, I hope I'm audible and everything
Yes,
is right.
everything is going well.
Yeah. So now I'll try to go into further into the details of classification based on the structure. As I said, there are porous membranes also and non-porous membranes also. So non-porous membranes are very dense films or mostly liquid membranes or even gas membranes. So maybe we can discuss that in future sometime. But I'll be focusing mostly on the porous membranes here. So based on porosity, we have porous and non-porous. Now, as I said, in the porous, we have symmetric membranes, then asymmetric membranes or composite membranes. So let's see what all these membranes look like. So symmetric membranes are like, the porosity. Now this is the cross section of the membrane seen under a very strong microscope. So you can, to the left, you can see the top portion of the membrane, and right hand side is a cross section of the membrane. So these pores are all like, very much aligned. जैसे जो हम बोलते हैं ना, संस्कारी बच्चे हैं, सब एक साथ एक जैसे बैठे हैं and all that. So, and these membranes are, see, in between I'll be also talking about how these membranes were made. So there are multiple ways you can make membranes out of polymer or different materials. So there are 4 or 5 different processes. So these were like made out of polycarbonate or polyester by the etching. So we etched the selected area, and that's how we get the symmetric membranes. Then again, symmetric membranes of nylon or PVDF. It's again a symmetric membrane, but the process of making membranes is different. This is a phase inversion membrane, phase inversion process. Okay. Again, very nicely organized pores and all that. Again, symmetric, but the different process here. These were kind of sheets which were stretched in a certain manner to get this kind of the porosity. Very well organized, aligned. So these are like PP, polyethylene, polypropylene, or PTFE membranes. Now these asymmetric membranes, mostly, all the UF, ultrafiltration, nanofiltration, RO, even microfiltration, these are all asymmetric membranes. So if you see, this is again a cross section under microscope, highly, magnified cross section. So the top is having very fine pores, like we are talking about maybe 5 to 10 nanometer size. Then below that, there are big size pores, like maximum 100 nanometers. And then again at the bottom, you have very fine pores. So these are asymmetric membranes. So all the membranes, they have very peculiar outputs or properties. But mostly, if we want to compare symmetric and asymmetric membranes, so the symmetric membranes, they tend to foul or they tend to choke very frequently compared to the asymmetric membranes, because that has nothing to do with the material or the surface morphology itself, but it has to do with the hydrodynamics of the of the flow. So then we have a thin film composite membrane. So thin film composite or composite membrane is basically, it's a combination of everything. So we have a reinforcing fabric or non-woven fabric, then we coat it with some membrane or say some polymer thin film, which might be UF, ultrafiltration. Then we have a selective layer, say polyamide layer, which gives you RO or nanofiltration. So it's a combination of 2-3 different layers. So that is how the name thin film composite or composite membrane comes from. So this again, this is how the composite membrane looks like. So to the left, you can see the top portion of the membrane is, this is again a cross section. So top portion of the membrane is very thin layer with the very teeny tiny pores. Even you can't see them here. And then you have the UF support, which is very coarse. And then there is the reinforcing fabric. So this was the broad
Sunil? Sunil?
I think we can't hear him.
1 minute.
that was a then tubular membranes, spiral membranes, or flat sheet membranes, or hollow fiber membranes.
Sunil, hold on.
Yeah.
Raju, can you, I think some of them saying is that they're not audible. Can you say a few words?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear.
Hear you, yeah.
Raju, can you hear?
Yeah. Is it good now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. Little maybe louder you can say.
No,
Sunil?
my mic, the volume was, I think, 50%. So I have made it like 100% now.
Okay. Go ahead.
So should I go back to a few more slides, or is it okay?
No, just go ahead with this. No problem.
Yeah. So we're talking about the types of membrane modules. So basically, what I was trying to tell is that once we make these different membranes, how do we arrange them in the product which can be used? So there are 4 different ways of doing that: plate and frame, tubular, spiral, and hollow fiber. So let us look at it one by one. So plate and frame is, as the name suggests, the simplest one. So we have at the bottom, you can see this, the middle sheet, which is a gray color sheet in the middle. So that's the membrane, and you are basically trying to sandwich it in between the supports and all that. So there is a plate of the membrane, and you are putting it into the frame. So that's as simple as that. So there are, mostly in drinking water or water purification, we don't use plate and frame that often. So plate and frames are used for the other industrial applications, most of the, non-water applications, like when we are dealing about the, say, solvent recovery or say acid neutralization and all those things. Then we have a tubular membrane. So this again is a membrane which is converted into a tube. Now there is a, technically the difference between tubular membrane and hollow fiber membrane is that the tubular membranes the diameter is bigger in size. Like, we're talking about 1 centimeter, maybe 2 centimeter diameter pipe. So these are mostly used in very harsh conditions, wherein, you need to, the operating conditions are very harsh, very harsh, like the pressure or the turbidity or the TSS levels are very high. You need very frequent washing. The pressures are very high. So that is where you need tubular membranes. The third and the most, used way of membranes is the spiral modules. So these are like flat sheets. We coat our polymer or make the membrane, kind of do the coating of the polymer material on some substrate or reinforced fabric, and then that is arranged into a spiral, a geometry like shown here. So of course it has to have a spacer in between 2 layers and all that. So this is how mostly the RO membranes are done.
Most favorite membrane.
Yeah. So The most, I would say, not say favorite, but the state of the art, the recent, membranes are hollow fiber membranes. So these are like tubular membranes, but very teeny tiny tubular membranes. We are talking about maybe 0.6, 0.7 mm outer diameter. You can see the picture, the top left corner. So that's the cross section of the membrane or hollow fiber under microscope. So the outer diameter is around 1, maybe 0.7 mm, inner diameter is 0.3 mm, and the wall of this pipe is porous. So if you can see that carefully, both the inner and the outer walls are very the porosities are very small. Like we're talking about, average porosities of say varying from 5 to 20 nanometers, and in between we have these big bulbs. These are like 100 to 200 nanometer sizes. So the good part about hollow fiber membranes is that you get large amount of surface area in the same volume which you could have got into which you can suppose, if you can put in 1 meter cube volume, if you can put 10 meter square of area of the flat sheet, so that you can put here maybe 3 times 4 times more. So this is the recent membrane, which is hollow fiber membrane. So these, if you can see in the right hand side pictures, so thousands of such fibers are arranged in a pipe, and then there is a process called glue potting. So we seal all these membranes and let the inner holes open. So as can be seen on the top right corner picture, and then that is arranged into the module, which you can see in the right hand side. So these are the hollow fiber membrane modules. So the next thing is about the membrane applications and processes. So before understanding the different applications and processes, let us understand, I'm sure a lot of you already know this, how the membranes are made. So I'll be mostly focusing on the true
Sunil, you are lost. Hello. Sunil? Sunil?
to make dope solution.
Sunil.
Yeah.
We lost you. Can you begin once again?
Yeah, on the same slide.
No, just
Yep.
start from the solvent polymer which is showing. You just started and gone. Your voice gone.
Okay, fine. So I'll start. There are two major ways of making membranes, which first is the flat sheet and second is the hollow fiber. So I'll just try to explain here how the flat sheets are made. So we, whatever, desired polymer, whatever properties we need out of the membrane, or whatever performance we are expecting out of the membrane. So based on that, we choose a polymer, which I'll be discussing in next few slides. So we mix that polymer or dissolve that polymer in a solvent. And by doing that, we get a solution which is called dope solution. So whatever green solution you can see in this beaker, so that's a dope solution, and that is basically coated on some support. Here it is written as a solid support, but it's not a solid. Basically, it's a porous, macro porous non-woven fabric, for example. So it is coated on that, and then whatever this solution, whatever solvent this solution is having, this whole coated support is put into dipped into some coagulation liquid. Maybe it could be as simple as water, which extracts all the solvent from this flat sheet, and it leaves only pores and that solid polymer on the solid support or the uh, reinforcing fabric. So that is how we get the flat sheet. So next is the hollow fiber membrane. So again, we make, say, dope solution. We mix polymer into the solvent, and then we make, it is making hollow fibers out of the dope solution is purely an engineering application. So if you can see, there is this the diagram showing which is having melt mixture and then two. So it that whatever is coming from the top in this assembly, engineering assembly, this is known as a spin rate. So whatever is coming from the top, it could be gas or liquid, and whatever is coming from the side is a polymer melt or dope solution. So this is how the hollowness or hollow pipe is generated, and then it goes to the coagulation liquid. So again, the coagulation liquid extract all the solvent from these fibers, and then it leaves fibers with the porosity. So this is how the hollow fibers are made. Now there are different materials, processes, and applications for different, membranes. So I tried to, since it is a, there are so many things, so I tried to put it in a table, but I tried to include each and all, most of the applications. So what I'll do, I think I will just focus on the water related stuff. So for water, mostly we are using PTFE, then PVDF, we are using polyamide or cellulose, polyacrylonitrile. So these are the polymers which we are mostly using. And then the structures we are talking about, like we are always talking about the porosity range of varying from, say, 0.1, 0.2 nanometers to up to 100 nanometers, depending on the application. Okay. So see, what are other applications or the I have mentioned here other than water are like, gas separation. Then we have a solvent recovery or alcohol dehydration and all that. But that anyway is not related to the water, so we can discuss that sometime other, in the following up webinars. So as I discussed, in previous slides, like flat sheet preparation and hollow fiber preparation. So these are the two major processes as far as the water purification membranes are concerned. And the major polymers or the materials we are using are like polysulfone, polyether sulfone, PVDF, PTFE, polyamide, cellulose, and the polyacrylonitrile. So these are all, we'll be discussing when to use what polymer. So, okay, before that, I think I should spend a few minutes on the typical properties of various membranes. So generally when we, I'll be discussing on just only 4 membranes here: microfiltration, ultrafiltration, nanofiltration, and reverse osmosis. So this is, these calculations are for some unit treatment of water per day, like maybe 100 KLD treatment of water. So generally the recovery of UF and MF, we talk about 90 to 98%. In some cases it goes to 99% even. NF is again very, compared to MF and UF, the porosity sizes are very small. So the pressure requirement is higher compared to MF and UF. So then again we go to RO, where the the porosities are extremely low and we need very high pressure. So you can see for say 100 KLD water treatment, the energy consumed by MF and RO, there is a huge like 20 times difference. And it is rightly so because we need very high pressures in RO. So the key here is, can I come up with RO which can work under the same pressure as UF and MF with the same efficiency? So there are a lot of people working on this also. In fact, I am also working on this. We will discuss that in the coming series also, that what is it, how can we get the performance of RO through different membranes, but at the same energy consumption as done or as needed by MF or UF. So yeah, these are the typical properties. And then what is the selection criteria for the membrane material? So this is not very tricky if we are talking about the water purification, mostly for the drinking water application. But it gets tricky when we talk about the very severe waters, or waters with different physicochemical nature, like it is maybe having very low pH, high pH, it is having some reactive components in it, it is having maybe heavy metals in it. So that is also one of the criteria, that what membrane material we should go for, whether the whatever we want to permeate or separate from the feed, if it is reacting with the membrane, that has to be taken care into. Then of course, what performance we are looking for out of the membrane. Is it the flux which is important? Is it the purity which is important, or is it the energy consumption which is very critical for that particular application? And as I discussed previously, the membrane fabrication processes, those fabrication processes also define the efficiency of the membrane. Like, when we talk about the salt concentration by not using RO, by using pervaporation or say membrane distillation membranes, then using the spiral wound or even the nanofiltration or say hollow fibers is a bad idea, because there are other mechanical changes, there are hydrodynamic challenges in that. Then stability of the membrane, so we decide on the material based on the stability of the membrane for that particular feed, based on the chemical composition or based on the pH it has. So yeah, my membrane material, I think we already discussed. And the membrane configuration and device, whether we should use plate and frame, whether we should use the hollow fibers or spiral wound membranes. So this also, the configuration also decides for what type of water you should use what, for the longer life and sustainability of the project or the product. Then lastly, I have a slide called system design slide. So which broadly, again, as I discussed in the last slide, it tells the same thing, that how we should decide when we design the system, whether it is a small one or the industrial one. So what are the selection criteria? Like, I discussed in the last slide, I discussed about the polymer materials, but here it also decides, the deciding factors are also the processing conditions, like, what temperatures are we exposed to? Is there any selectivity which your membrane is having to the permeant or the impurities? What is the, whether the fouling tendency of the membrane is because of the module preparation, or whether it is because of the feed impurities in the feed. So all these things, and then you of course need to optimize your membrane use or design your system based on what are the pressures available, what are the flow rates, what are the temperature exposures, or even whatever you are trying to separate from the feed or the wastewater or water. whether it is sensitive to the operating conditions. It could be, generally we discuss about, we talk about the temperatures which disturb the proteins and aroma and all that, but it could be high pressures also because of the phenomena called cavitation, which disturbs the molecules, or it can disintegrate the molecules. So there is a deep, very much deep science into all these things, so which I think we can discuss in future. So yeah, that's all I had on this the first part. The coming up soon parts, like part 2, I would like to discuss on the RO and desalination membranes. What is the past, what was the past, what is the present, and what all future things are going to be there in the desalination, like what all things people are working on right now, what is their feasibility, what are the chances of commercializing those, and which are the things which are nearly commercialized. And mostly in this I'll be talking in terms of the its relation to the Indian market, because when we talk about the foreign markets, they can somehow a little bit high opex for them is okay, but Indian scenario is very different. Like we consider, when it is water treatment, we consider it as a cost center. So in that perspective, I'll be discussing this second part. Third part, of course, UFMF, what was the past, present, and again future. And the last part, I would be happy to share what all unconventional membranes, which mostly people don't know right now. Maybe some of you know already, but what are the unconventional membranes which has or have a lot of potential in the industrial market, and what, when I say big potential, what is the potential we are talking about, so that we may convey in the last part. So yeah, this is Chandu was talking about this picture. So I was invited by the president at the Rashtrapati Bhavan last year. So based on my different products right now, we are serving around 3 million people in India per day. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for this opportunity. So I can take questions now.
Thank you, Sunil, for such a illustrative and lucid presentation. I think you walked about, I think all the, I should say that the most fundamental information which many of our members just would like to know as a starting point about how the membrane, what membranes, how types of membranes, and what types are required, and some related to system design, materials, and all. I know that we have a mixed group in these members, so it's good that you begin with this. And I know that part 2, part 3, and part 4, maybe you will get into a little bit more a deeper understanding from a scientific perspective. And I really look forward, probably our members and all, they will really, should attend this kind of webinars to have a better understanding of all this, membrane world particularly. One very important thing, I would like to bring
Hi Sunil, this is Satish here. I typed my question. One question what I have is, most of the RO manufacturers currently, they do talk about the salt removal performance. Most of the time is dedicated for that. They somehow talk little lesser on the microbiological performance. I'm talking about typical household RO membrane suppliers. Is there any, what could be the background or underlying, insights on why they talk more? Of course, the main purpose of the RO membrane is the salt removal, but however, why did they talk less about microbiological performance? If you could throw some insights from your side, that would help.
That's a very good question. Thank you so much. Actually, there are 2-3 different things here. So when we talk about the RO membranes, we are talking about the porosity sizes of less than say one nanometer, and the smallest pathogen you can have in water is the poliovirus, which is say around 30 nanometers. So to begin with, it was taken for granted that when it is a RO membrane, if it is removing the say monovalent or bivalent ions, that means it is for sure removing the pathogens. So that is how it started. But now what has started happening recently is that most the raw material used for the RO membranes, you know, for example the cellulose or polyamide, somehow it is somehow bacteria like that. It is a good food for them. So in some cases, you know, it happens that bacteria start eating the material and create very small pores. Though these pores are small, like not all over the place the bacteria is creating these pores, but it is still not affecting the salt rejection, but it does allow the bacteria and viruses to pass through. So it is always a tricky part to tell when, you know, to kind of claim on the viruses and bacteria on the RO also. So mostly people stick to the salt recovery, and that is basically, that was the basic purpose of the innovation on RO or reverse osmosis.
So, Dr. Dhol, can you just comment on you know, as the porosity goes down, you know, more of you get diffusion control more prominent. So that is also one of the reasons, you know, why you cannot term a reverse osmosis membrane as a biological membrane, because ultimately, you know, as we are going to go down on the porosity, diffusion will become more prominent, and you have ample chance of diffusing the smaller size microbes through it.
Yeah, that actually, see, that is partly true, because of course major thing is diffusion, but though the diffusion is happening through the small pores, but still the microbe size are still bigger. Like, you know, in RO membranes, we are talking about less than 1 nanometer porosity size, and the microbes, as I said, the smallest one could be 30 nanometers. By the way, for your information, the coronavirus is around 100 nanometers. So we can still claim corona in water. So, so you know, it is primarily we still don't say RO as a diffusion membrane, because it is still working under very high pressure, opposite to the osmotic pressure. We try to generate pressure which is greater than the osmotic pressure, and trying to push the water molecules through the membrane. So diffusion membranes are, for example, membranes wherein, like, you know, for example, on the micron size of even 0.04 micron, which is around 40 nanometers, you can still reject salt at such a high porosity level. But if you create the mass transfer gradient across the membrane, you need to have a hydrophobic membrane, and then you only allow the water molecules to diffuse. So there you don't need very high pressure to pass the water through the membrane. So there it is happening on the pure diffusion phenomena. While RO is not a pure diffusion phenomena, it is still a high pressure phenomena. That's why we need, you know, very high pressures in RO. Like in domestic applications, we need at least 4 or 5 bars, and in industrial minimum we need is 10 bar or more than that. So it is still a high pressure phenomena, not primarily a diffusion phenomena. But I think in my coming slides, or the coming, talks in future, this will be more clear. Then I will discuss about the diffusion membranes and RO membranes separately. I will discuss the science of it.
Yeah. Yeah, Sunil, somehow, I lost, and then I can't see anything in my chat box. So if you can, somebody can really volunteer this and see that what are the questions there.
Okay.
And so it's already, I think, almost 12. So you can see something. If we can take up some questions.
Yeah, I'm just going to.
It's not visible anything in my chat box, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm just going through the.
Just see if there is something, there is some general questions or something specific.
So there is one question from Mr. Rakesh Kumar. So what would be the purification efficiency for hollow fiber versus spiral one? See, if you talk about the per meter square efficiency of the membrane, it is not going to be different. The efficiency is going to be different per module. In the same size module, I can have more surface area with the hollow fibers, thereby I will get higher throughput. While on the spiral one, I will have same size module but less surface area, there how I will get less output. But the per meter square surface, per meter square efficiency would be same. Of course, it depends on how, what is the kind of water we are trying to treat. So, and for some cases, it will be easy for hollow fibers to clean, and some other cases, it will be easy for the spiral membranes to clean or, get the CIP done. Now, this is not a question from Ramesh. He is saying switch off the video. So,
actually, that time your network was going. That's why I suggested.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so I think Mr. Satish Shigaon, I already answered.
Okay.
But we will anyway in the future we'll spend more time on the science of the RO versus diffusion membranes.
So, Dr. Dhol, can you just throw some light on, what about outside in versus inside out, ultrafiltration, membranes?
Yeah,
that more efficient again,
yeah. So it is again a very, very good and excellent question. See, mostly based on the whatever experience people have on the ultrafiltration hollow fiber membrane. So out to in always is always good option, because if you try to understand the engineering of a pipe, so you can exert high pressure from the out, or even if you go for like 2 to 3 times more higher pressure than in to out, you will not end up breaking the fiber. That is one thing. Second thing, whatever impurities you accumulate on the outer side, it is very easy to clean. While from in to out, if the impurity size is, say, if you end up entering into some big size impurities into the inner side of the fiber, so it is very difficult to kind of clean that, and it may damage the fiber also. So out to in is always suggested. But the other thing is that when you manufacture your hollow fibers, so that manufacturing process also decides that, suppose I know my membranes are meant to be out to in, so I will have the porosity arrangement that way. So I will put the fine one on the outside and the coarse one in the inside. So it all depends on that also, whether you are having the multiple layer hollow fiber. It is called the 2-layer hollow fiber. So if it is that, or if it is the symmetric membrane, like the pores are same from both the sides. So there are these parameters which decide whether you should go for out to in or in to out, but 90% it is out to in.
But somebody was, I was having discussion with few colleagues, in my previous work, and they were telling me that it is easier to manufacture inside out hollow fiber because of the skin core morphology in the spinneret, and it's cheaper to manufacture inside out, fibers than outside in fibers.
No.
And also it is easier to assemble the and construct the module inside out as compared to outside in.
No, I think maybe they are talking about some special applications, but we do manufacture hollow fibers in our factory. So I do both the things, and see, structurally, production-wise, mechanically, there is no difference in the production process or in the downstream process, like like drying or potting and curing. So it is the same thing. It is only the morphology which looks different.
Okay.
But as far as the manufacturing is concerned, it is the same thing. Maybe they were talking about something which is really, I mean, custom made or something different.
Okay.
Sunil, just for everyone, I just got a very fundamental question, because you have I have shared with the documents of the NGT. So as a membrane expert, you are, what do you think about can we really make in our country a membranes which can start with the 60% recovery to 75%, which at this moment NGT is pushing us. So can you throw some light in that direction? Is that, can we do something like that for this country? Although it dictates with the TDS, I understand that. But do you think any way we can do something on this?
Chandu, I think I'll answer this very shortly because I'll be spending a lot of time on this in the future talks. But I think there are 2-3 very important things here. The first thing has to do nothing with the polymer, with the membrane. It has to do with the policy, government policy. So because if we really focus on the water management issues, if we focus on the water, whether recovery, reuse or rainwater harvesting, and try to supply that water to the communities, then there is no question of water recovery or the membrane efficiency. Then you can use the simplest possible membranes like UF, MF, maybe NF, which can always give you like 98% of the recovery. Okay. So, but this is all possible on paper, but practically it might take maybe another 100 years. So to answer your second, but of course this can be done in areas where the TDS levels are less than 500. So that's what I think NGT is also pushing for. So there, fortunately in India now, I mean, I'm not promoting myself or my company, but now we have the UF membrane which can work under gravity, and we claim all the virus, bacteria, cysts. Even we have modified the UF, we have modified the chemistry of the polymer in such a way it removes the iron also from the water. So both dissolved and undissolved. So there are such products which are coming up wherever the RO or the TDS is levels are less than 500. We can definitely think of such technologies. But to answer your other part, like the areas where the TDS is high, yes, it is definitely possible to have a high recovery, and there are couple of technologies people are developing or they have developed. Of course, a lot of you might have heard about the forward osmosis. So there are some issues with the forward osmosis as far as the commercialization is concerned. So what are those limitations? What lies ahead in that I will be discussing. And then there are as Dr. Neeraj, I was discussing with Dr. Neeraj on the diffusion membranes. So there are diffusion membranes like membrane distillation membranes, which I'm also developing, or I'm part of that group. So there, we can talk about 95% recovery, but again, it is not a solution for household. Again, it is at the policy level. Like for example, if you take the desalination plant of Chennai, it is purely based on the RO. If you switch that to a membrane distillation membrane, the OPEX, the CAPEX is higher, OPEX is also bit higher, but at the same time, whatever reject you are getting, that you make a valuable products out of that, and you make it sustainable. Like it is a payback period. It is not a community project anymore. So it is all possible, and we will be discussing that in the coming lectures also. There is one more question.
Dhol, what Chandu was trying to ask you is that does the science really is really permitting the use of higher recovery, like 60 and 70 through RO technology?
Sir, science will permit the higher recovery, but it is not RO per se. It is a different membrane. That's what I was talking about. It is the membrane distillation membrane. It is a replacement kind of, it is an alternative to RO, and which works under very low pressure. Like we are talking about 1 bar inlet pressure, not like 10, 15, 20 bar. But there are other, aspects to it. So scientifically, yes, it is possible. Of course, it will take some more time, maybe 4 or 5 years more, but yes, it is possible.
But not through conventional reverse osmosis technology, you are saying?
No, or we can couple the conventional RO with this modified membrane. But to get 90% recovery is quite possible.
So what you were trying to say is that is it very much possible along with RO something to put it?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have Dr. Neeraj. So we have to see that in the future what I look for, for a scientific perspective. Sunil, you can help us with our industry members to have a basic understanding of this. Because.
Yeah, sure.
Really help them, because we are always we think about we are under really the situation is September, and NGT is they are waiting for, they should invite us for the finalizing the thing, December, but before 31st December they have to release, and we are also all of us every day I got a call from everyone. So let us prepare ourselves in that way that if it has come, what is the next? I know that immediately overnight they don't have to implement, but down the line, maybe 2 years or 3 years, it has to be implemented.
Yeah.
So we really
there is a next.
RO is the whole game plan is only RO going on. Nothing people talk about that. I never see that anybody. Nothing is UF, MF. It's all game of RO. So we really need to understand.
See, Chandu, we have to understand the basic problem is not really water treatment. What people refer to as water treatment is desalination. So people don't understand microbial, disinfection. They more understand, desalination, but they relate it as water treatment because they can taste it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we need
really... So there are two.
Sir, I think
there are two more questions.
Yeah, just two last questions you can take up, and then we can adjourn this meeting.
So this is one from Mr. Shyam Kumar. He is saying that what is the basic difference between tubular membrane and UF membrane, and what are the applications of tubular membrane? Actually, see, tubular membrane and UF membrane, there is no difference. Tubular membrane is just the way of arrangement. Tubular membrane can be UF membrane, tubular membrane can be MF or NF, nanofiltration, microfiltration, or UF. It is just that film, the thin film of the membrane or flat sheet is arranged in a tubular fashion. So we use such membranes like 1 centimeter diameter or maybe couple of centimeter diameters, where the impurities in the water are big in size. so that it is very easy to clean. So that is the tubular membrane. So tubular membrane could be anything like UF, NF, or microfiltration. Okay. So the second, maybe as per Chandu, the last question.
Yes, yes.
Is that what are the limiting parameters for hollow fiber UF membranes for brackish water where TDS is less than 500 ppm in drinking water? See, the most important limiting factor for UF membrane is the turbidity or the total suspended solids. So generally, if you take the most efficient UF membrane, which is very hydrophilic and all that, anti-fouling and all. So we can, at the max, we can allow 300 ppm as the suspended solid impurity. So that, other than that, there is no such limiting parameter as such.
All right. So we are now almost 15 minutes more. So I took your 5 minutes. So I have given more than 10 minutes for you. Okay. In the beginning. So thank you, a big thank you to Dr. Sunil Dhol for such an illustrative presentation. I think it opened up, and I know that everybody has several questions because I very much know that everybody needs to understand this membrane related stuff in a much deeper way by our industry friends. So we look forward to a much more second part, third part, and the fourth part. You never know, you will give maybe fifth, sixth part also, because it all depends on how we go, and we really look forward for your, expert opinions on various matters. Of course, technical anyway, but you also in other aspect also. And we definitely come back to you. We'll discuss you to see that when we schedule the part 2, and we will give at least a 2 weeks time, and then hold a second part. And so today is 18, so I don't think that in September we can do. October we will come up with a date as per your convenience, and then we will announce with our members. The last thing is that to tell all the members, we are sending the recording to all the members. And before I close this, vote of thanks and some remarks from Dr. Neeraj Gupta, President of WQIA.
I first of all welcome. I would like to welcome Dr. Dhol again back to WQIA. As I know, as I definitely remember that he was the first sponsor in the first meeting that he said, and surely I do remember that, Dr. Dhol. Also, I'm very thankful for you, taking on this effort to put this webinar series. This is a very important and very meaningful subject for all the water treatment industry. And with your experience and with your insight into the technology and the subject, it will be great to have people learn and the intricacies of what exactly we are dealing with. Today, people use it just as a part. But what goes into that part is equally important, because now we are bound by several, as Chandu explained, NGT issues, which are trying to drive, exponentially high level of output through the conventional technologies. So the limitations and what are the limitations and how these limitations can be overcome. We look forward for all your valuable inputs, and insights into the technology area as we move forward in the webinar series. So thank you very much for your time and dedicated effort to put on this webinar series. And I definitely look forward for more inputs from you, not only in the webinar series, but as a part of WQIA, and from the technology side, from the statutory requirement point side, and definitely dealing with and interfacing with government. So look forward for your valuable inputs as we move forward. Thank you very much, sir, for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.
With permission of Dr. Neeraj Gupta, I am happy to invite you in two committees, Standard Committee of WQIA and NGT Committee of WQIA. So we want your
Thank you.
participation in both the committees to help us in drafting, help us with technically and for every aspect. And
Yeah, I'll be happy to do that. Thank you
thank
so
you.
much.
And for all the members, be safe, take care of yourself and your families. And all of us, you'll see when the time is, everything is good, we will have a next WQIA meeting. I look forward to see many people should attend so that, we will have a great fun as well as networking, and we see that how we can drive this industry down the line to make affordable, safe water for citizens of this country. So thank you all. Take care once again, and we can adjourn this webinar. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good day.